Welcome to Camp Half-Blood. Tonight, you're not in your room. You're standing at the edge of a pine-covered hill. The sky is full of stars, and the air smells faintly of salt and strawberries. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the quiet crash of waves against a shoreline and the soft flicker of a campfire calling you home. You're about to step into a world where gods walk among mortals, where myths live on in cabins and forests, and where a boy named Percy Jackson once found out he wasn't just another kid. He was the son of Poseidon. And everything changed from there. But tonight, this isn't a story of battles or monsters. This is a story of peace. Of quiet memories, gentle dreams, and the soft glow of starlight on ancient ruins. You won't need a sword here. Only your imagination, and maybe a warm blanket. For the next 2 hours, we'll take a journey through the calmest corners of Percy Jackson's world. Not the loud parts, not the fights or the betrayals, but the soft parts, the sleepy ones. The moments that slip between quests and danger, like sitting by a lake after dinner, or listening to the wind whistle through the pine trees at night, or falling asleep to the sound of Pegasi flapping gently above your cabin roof. You'll visit Camp Half-Blood under the moonlight, walk the halls of Poseidon's underwater palace, drift through the dreams Percy never told anyone about, and hear the myths of gods who watched quietly from the stars. Each scene is here to help you unwind, to slow your breath, and to fall gently into sleep. So let your shoulders drop. Take one deep breath in, hold it, and let it go slowly. You're safe here. You're welcome here. And the story is just beginning. Tonight, Percy Jackson is your guide, but the world is yours to wander. So close your eyes now, and let's begin. Before the gods, before Olympus, before quests and monsters and magical wars. There was a boy on a school bus, staring out the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. His name was Percy Jackson. And at the time, he didn't know who he was. He didn't know he was a demigod. Didn't know that Greek myths were real. Didn't know that the sea was calling him home. But we'll get there. Let's go back to the beginning of that first summer. To the moment Percy crossed the threshold between two worlds. From the noise of New York City to the calm pine hills of Camp Half-Blood. It started with thunder and a minotaur. But that's not the part we'll focus on tonight. Let's skip ahead to the moment the storm cleared. To the soft thud of Percy's unconscious body being lifted gently onto a stretcher and wheeled past the borders of the camp. There the scent of strawberries hung thick in the air. And as he slipped into dreams, he heard a deep voice say something about nectar, ambrosia, and healing. Then silence. Then stars. When Percy woke up, the first thing he noticed wasn't the pain in his body. It was the light. Golden sunlight pouring through the windows, warm and soft like a blanket. He turned his head slowly. The ceiling was wooden. The room smelled like cedar and lemon balm. Outside, he could hear children laughing and the distant clang of metal on metal. He was in the big house, at Camp Half-Blood. Later, he would meet Chiron the wise centaur who always seemed to know more than he let on, and Mr. D, the god of wine, who grumbled and muttered and played pinochle like the world owed him something. But for now, Percy was just a kid in a strange new place. Grover was the first familiar face he saw. His best friend. Or, as he'd now learned, his satyr protector. Grover sat beside his bed, eating a tin can like it was popcorn. He grinned and said, "You made it, man. You're safe." And for the first time in what felt like forever, Percy believed him. Let's pause here. Imagine it now. The big house's wooden porch creaking softly in the breeze. A pitcher of cold lemonade sweating on a table. Wind chimes made of celestial bronze tinkling faintly in the distance. You're watching from the shade as a new camper steps out, blinking at the sunlight. Everything is green, alive, peaceful. Camp Half-Blood stretches out before him, a valley of cabins and trees and laughter. There are children playing tag with wooden swords, pegasi circling above in slow arcs, and satyrs tuning panpipes near the strawberry fields. This place isn't a battlefield. Not today. It's a sanctuary. Percy walks with Grover through the camp. There's a softness to the way Grover talks. He points out the cabins. That's Athena's full of books and blueprints. That's Ares a little too loud, a little too fiery. And that one? The Poseidon cabin, empty. Just waiting. Percy doesn't know yet what it means. But something about it pulls at him. Like the ocean in his blood is whispering, "This is yours." Night falls. The campfire is lit. Campers gather around it, their faces glowing in the orange light. Someone strums a guitar. Someone else tells a myth about how Medusa got her snakes. Marshmallows puff and crackle above the flames. Percy listens quietly. He's not sure what to feel. He's safe, but he's not sure if he belongs. And then, Annabeth sits beside him. Sharp eyes, smarter than anyone he's ever met. She doesn't say much. Just hands him a roasted marshmallow and says, "You drool in your sleep." He laughs. And for the first time, Camp Half-Blood feels like home. Days pass slowly and sweetly. Percy learns to use a sword riptide, his magic pen blade. He trains with Luke in the arena, practices dodging magical arrows in the forest, swims in the lake like he was born there because he was. But the best moments aren't the battles. They're the quiet ones. Early mornings, when the mist rises over the water. Afternoons spent painting shields and arts and crafts. Evenings where he sneaks off to sit by the creek just to think. Here, time feels different. Every sound is softer. Every color is warmer. And for a boy who spent his life feeling like a mistake, this place is finally teaching him that he's something more. One night, Percy has a dream. He's underwater, but he's not drowning. He's floating, peaceful. And someone tall, regal, with eyes like storm clouds is watching him from the deep. A voice echoes around him. "My son." And then he wakes up. The Poseidon cabin door creaks in the wind. The next day, everything changes. There's a moment right before breakfast when the sky darkens. Thunder rumbles. And a glowing green trident appears above Percy's head. The whole camp stares. Chiron bows his head. And Annabeth whispers, "You're the one." From that moment on, the Poseidon cabin isn't empty anymore. It has a boy inside, a son of the sea, a demigod with a destiny. But not tonight. Tonight, he sleeps in the cabin alone. The stone walls cool and echoing, waves gently lapping outside the window. A seashell sits on the nightstand, humming with ancient power. He closes his eyes, and the sea sings him to sleep. Let's stay there a while. In that moment, Percy Jackson, just a boy. Safe. Wrapped in a blanket with the smell of salt and cedar in the air. A moonbeam sliding across the floor, and dreams waiting just behind his eyelids. No monsters. No quests. Just stars. And the sound of waves. Gentle water ambiance. Soft nighttime melody begins to fade in. distant chirping of crickets, breeze through pine trees, soft lake sounds. The days at Camp Half-Blood passed like pages turning in an old leather-bound storybook. And Percy Jackson, once the boy who never belonged, was now one of them. He still didn't fully understand what it meant to be a demigod, but he was learning, not through grand quests, but through the little things. Like waking up in his quiet cabin, the walls lined with seashells and driftwood, the floor cool against his bare feet, and sunlight filtering in, dappled through the curtains like underwater light. He'd rise early sometimes before the bugle horn, and he'd walk alone, barefoot to the lake. There mist hovered just above the surface, and the water glowed softly under the pale sky. He'd step in slowly, ankle deep, then knee deep, until the lake welcomed him completely. Underwater, there was no sound, only stillness, and that feeling deep in his bones that this was where he was meant to be. After morning swims came breakfast at the pavilion, rows of long wooden tables, campers chattering sleepily, steam rising from hot chocolate and blue pancakes. Percy sat alone sometimes. Poseidon's cabin had only one occupant, but he didn't mind, because the wind off the sea always found him, and the sunlight always warmed his back. And once in a while, Grover would join him, humming softly and offering bits of apple to nearby nymphs. They didn't always talk. They didn't need to. Sometimes the best friendships are made in silence. Training came next. Not the brutal, blood-pumping kind you'd imagine from stories, but rhythmic, focused, almost meditative. Sword drills with Luke's slow movements like a dance. Dodge. Practice with flying strawberries, courtesy of Demeter Cabin. Breathing exercises by the archery range, where Percy learned to still his mind before loosing an arrow. Even the forest had its calm. The trees knew the campers. They swayed gently when familiar feet passed under their branches. Dryads peeked out, curious but kind, and magical creatures kept their distance, watching silently, approvingly. There was magic in the woods, not the explosive kind, but the ancient kind, old and sleepy, like something waiting, dreaming, beneath the roots. Annabeth trained nearby, focused, fierce, but even she had her soft days. One afternoon, Percy found her sketching blueprints in the Athena cabin. The room was quiet, the other campers away. She looked up and said nothing, just gestured to a seat beside her. And for a while, they sat there, the scratch of her pencil the only sound. "I'm gonna build something someday," she murmured eventually. "Something lasting, something that matters." Percy didn't say anything. He just nodded. And in that silence, they understood each other. Sometimes, late at night, Percy wandered the camp by himself. Not because he couldn't sleep, but because the night called to him. The moonlight on the strawberry fields. The sound of the ocean in the distance. The stars overhead clearer than he'd ever seen in the city. He'd walk past the cabins, glowing faintly with candlelight. Past the forge, where Hephaestus campers left sparks still dancing in the air. Past the woods, which whispered his name like leaves brushing against one another. And sometimes, he'd stop by the Pegasus stables. Blackjack, a stubborn, sky-loving Pegasus, would nicker softly when Percy approached. "Hey, buddy," Percy would whisper, stroking his mane. "You miss flying too?" Blackjack would lean in, warm and heavy, like a dog that didn't know his size. And Percy would rest against him, listening to the steady thump of his heartbeat. It was grounding, reassuring, real. Then, there was Capture the Flag, a camp tradition. Every Friday evening after dinner. The woods transformed into a battleground, but tonight we won't tell that version. Instead, we'll tell the version that happened after the game, when the fire was low, when campers returned, bruised and smiling, when the night was thick with dew and exhaustion. Percy lay in the grass beside the lake, still wearing his armor. Grover snored softly nearby, a foil helmet tilted over his eyes. Annabeth lay on his other side, arms crossed behind her head, staring at the stars. No one spoke. They just breathed. The sky turned darker. The constellations clearer. And in that moment, with his friends beside him and the lake reflecting the stars, Percy felt peace. Not everything at camp was perfect. There were challenges, people who doubted him, fears he couldn't name. But there was also healing, and it didn't come all at once. It came in fragments, in the laughter of new friends, in the steady rhythm of sword strikes, in the way the water welcomed him, in the smell of marshmallows at the fire pit. Healing came in the space between danger, in the quiet, in the safety of a place that understood him. Camp Half-Blood was his refuge. And for that one summer, before war, before loss, before the weight of the world, Percy Jackson got to be just a kid. A kid who swam like a dolphin, dreamed like a poet, and smiled like someone who'd finally found where he belonged. Let's stay with him now. It's the end of the day. The sun has set. The campers are asleep. And Percy is lying on the dock beside the lake, legs dangling off the edge. He dips his toes in the water, watching the ripples drift outward. The stars above are reflected below, turning the lake into a mirror of the sky. He hears a splash in the distance, probably a naiad. Then quiet again. Everything is still. And then, a voice. It isn't loud. It isn't even clear. But it comes from the water, soft and ancient and kind. Rest, my son. Percy doesn't reply. He doesn't need to. He closes his eyes and lets the water rock him to sleep. And so ends the first summer. Not with a storm, but with a sigh. Percy Jackson, the boy who ran from monsters, now sleeps beneath the stars. Safe. At peace. Home. Long before demigods walked among us, before Camp Half-Blood, before cabins and quests, there were the gods, not just thunder and war, not just vengeance and fire, but stories, whispers, moments of softness, hidden beneath their might. Tonight, you'll hear their gentler tales, the kind they tell only under starlight, the kind they whisper to the wind, when no one else is listening. Let's begin with the goddess of the hearth, Hestia. You won't find her at the front of battles. You won't see her name carved into shields or sung in epic poems. But she's always there. In the center of the hearth, in the first flicker of flame, in the quiet that follows chaos. Hestia was the firstborn of the Olympians. And when her siblings fought for thrones and titles, she chose something else. She gave up her seat on Mount Olympus so that peace could exist between the gods. She became the eternal flame, the warmth in every home, the guardian of stillness. Camp Half-Blood honors her every night with a fire that never goes out. Even when the camp sleeps, she watches. If you've ever felt safe by candlelight, if you've ever stared into a fireplace and felt calm, that's her. The goddess who asks for nothing and gives everything. Next, we visit the golden fields of grain, where the wind hums through tall stalks, where the sun sets in waves of amber and gold. This is the story of Demeter, goddess of the harvest. But more than that, she is the story of a mother. Once, Demeter had a daughter. Her name was Persephone, and she was the joy of the world. Together, they walked the earth, blessing the land with life. Flowers bloomed in their footsteps. Rivers sang in their wake. But one day, Persephone was taken down into the underworld to become queen beside Hades. Demeter's grief turned the world cold. Leaves withered, crops died. The first winter fell upon the earth. But even grief can be softened by love. Eventually, a deal was made. Persephone would return each spring. And so every year, when the snow melts and the first buds bloom, Demeter smiles again. She is a reminder that sadness can rest, that even the coldest winters end in bloom. Let us drift, now to the sea, to crashing waves, and the silence of the deep. Poseidon, god of the oceans, father of storms, but also father of Percy. You may think of earthquakes and shipwrecks, but Poseidon is more than rage. In the heart of the sea, there is quiet, a world of coral forests and glowing fish, of ancient palaces hidden beneath the waves, of lullabies sung by whales to their calves. Poseidon watches his son from afar, not always with words, but with tides that rise to carry Percy to safety, with horses that kneel only for him, with waves that part when he walks. He is proud, quietly, constantly. And if you ever find yourself near the ocean at night, with no one else around, listen closely. The waves might be whispering your name, high above it all. In a sky made of poetry and flame, rides Apollo, god of the sun, of music, of healing. He wakes each morning to guide the sun chariot across the sky, a trail of golden light behind him. But Apollo is not just a warrior. He is a dreamer. He plays the lyre under moonlight. He composes songs to calm storms. He paints sunsets with color and care. At Camp Half-Blood, his children sing softly at twilight, their voices rising like incense. Their arrows guided not by anger, but by rhythm. There's a tale he tells of the first lullaby he ever played. A song so gentle, it put even Zeus to sleep. And in the notes of that lullaby, there was no battle, no pride, only peace. Let us now enter a quieter place, a grove wrapped in olive branches. The air still, the ground warm. Here stands Athena, goddess of wisdom, and thought, and patience. She is a strategist, yes, but she is also a builder, a protector of cities, the mother of ideas. Once, when the people of a new city asked which god would protect them, Athena and Poseidon both offered gifts. Poseidon struck the ground, and a saltwater spring rushed forth. Athena stepped forward and planted a small olive tree. It was quiet, simple, but from it came shade, oil, life, and the people chose her. That city became Athens, and to this day, wherever you find a library, a school, a girl reading under a tree, Athena is there, watching, guiding, building silently. Not all gods need thunder to be heard. Some speak in gardens, in verses, in silence. Some choose peace over glory, warmth over war. And tonight, they choose sleep. Soft harp and panpipe melody fades in. These are only some of their stories. There are more, hidden in the stars, carried by the breeze, waiting to be told. But for now, rest. You've walked among gods. You've felt their gentleness, heard their quieter truths, and you are part of those stories now. Not all gods belong to sky or sea. Some walk between shadows, not feared, but respected. Not loud, but present. Let us drift now, to the edge of sunlight, where twilight lingers and secrets bloom. Here we find Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, the protector of maidens, but more than anything, a goddess of silence. She does not rage. She does not demand. She wanders through forests, under moonlight, with her silver bow and a pack of loyal hunters trailing just behind. Campers whisper of seeing her, a flash of silver among the trees, eyes glowing like moonstone, a hush following in her wake. She does not speak unless she must, but when she does, her voice is like water slipping over stone. And when her hunters sit around fires, they don't boast or bicker. They tell quiet stories, stories of kindness, of rescuing lost animals, of watching the stars in total stillness, side by side. Artemis is a reminder that strength does not need to shout, and that sometimes the softest path leads the farthest. We move now to laughter, to gold, to wine that glows in crystal goblets, but not the wild kind. Tonight, we visit a quieter version of Dionysus. At camp, he's Mr. D, grumpy, bored, banished to watch over kids who chew with their mouths open. But even gods have layers. Dionysus is not just the god of revelry. He is the god of release, of surrender, of feeling emotions too large to hold and letting them out. There's a gentleness in that. Sometimes he sits at the edge of the amphitheater alone, wineglass in hand, watching campers rehearse plays from long ago. He doesn't smile, but his eyes soften. And sometimes, when no one is looking, he hums old songs to himself. Songs from when mortals danced beneath olive trees, and thank the gods not for power, but for joy. Dionysus is the god who sees the cracks in people, and instead of fixing them, he pours light into them. And now, let's meet someone you wouldn't expect in a lullaby. Ares. Yes, the god of war. But war isn't only noise and fire. There's a moment before the storm, a breath before the battle cry. And even in Ares, there is stillness. When his children sleep, he stands guard unseen at the edge of their dreams. He sharpens blades not just to fight, but to protect. He's not gentle, but he is loyal. He is the guardian at the door, the storm on your side. And though he rarely speaks with love, his silence, his presence, says what words never could. And what of Hermes, the messenger, the traveler, the god of roads and thieves? He moves fast, talks fast, lives fast. But every messenger has a pause. Hermes is the god who stays up late, checking in on every dreamer, every lost soul between places, every traveler who doesn't know where they're going, but keeps walking anyway. He brings comfort in motion, peace in movement. If you've ever stared out a train window and felt strangely okay, Hermes was riding with you. Now let us turn to someone often feared. But tonight, we listen differently. Hades, god of the underworld. Not evil, not cruel, just shadow. Hades keeps the balance. He watches over the quietest souls. He keeps the forgotten remembered. In his realm, the dead are not tormented. They're held, watched, honored. He walks the gardens of Asphodel in silence, watches flowers grow from memory, listens to the stories the dead whisper when they think no one hears. And sometimes, when Persephone returns in spring, he smiles, a rare thing, but real. For even the god of death knows what it is to love gently. And finally, let's look above. To Olympus, to its tallest throne, where sits the king of the gods, Zeus. We know him as thunder, as sky, as ruler. But even kings grow tired. Sometimes, he watches the clouds. Not as storms, but as stories forming. He watches his children at camp. His brothers in the sea and underworld. His wife, Hera, still beside him through centuries. And when no one is watching, he prays. Not loudly. Not to any god, but to time itself. To history. That one day, someone might tell the story of the gods, not with fear, but with awe. And in those moments, he is not thunder. He is a father, a watcher, a single flicker of light in a sky too wide to hold. So now, you've met the gods. Not in battle, not in glory, but in quiet, in sleep. They are more than myths. They are warmth, grief, wonder, curiosity. They are the soft winds that cool your face after a long day, the flicker of candlelight before your dreams begin. They are the stories that do not shout, but sing. And if tonight you feel something near you, a presence, a whisper, a calm, it may be them, watching, smiling, guarding your sleep. Close your eyes now. You've walked with the gods, and the gods have walked with you. Before he became a protector, before he braved monsters and mazes, before he carried the weight of a prophecy on his back, Grover Underwood was just a satyr with a dream. Not a warrior, not a leader. Just a kid who loved trees more than people, and believed that somewhere out there, Pan was still watching. Let's go back. Long before Camp Half-Blood, long before Percy Jackson, to a meadow tucked between two hills, where the grass grew tall and the sunlight was always soft. There, a young Grover used to sit for hours, a rusted tin lunchbox beside him, panpipes in his lap, a wildflower crown crooked on his curly hair. He didn't talk much. Didn't need to. Because the trees understood him. The breeze answered his questions. And when he played his pipes, the earth listened. Grover's earliest memories weren't of battles or quests. They were of music. Of lying in the sun with his hooves crossed, playing quiet notes until the wind began to harmonize. He didn't know it yet, but that music would one day save lives. It started with a single seed, a wish. He wanted to find Pan, the god of the wild, the lost protector of all things natural. Most had given up, said Pan was gone, dead, or faded into the forests. But Grover believed, not loudly, not proudly, but deeply, quietly, in his heart. He trained hard to become a searcher, not because he wanted glory, but because he wanted to help, to listen, to protect the parts of the world that didn't have a voice. Trees, rivers, animals. Even forgotten corners of old cities where moss still clung to bricks like memories. He wasn't the fastest satyr, or the strongest, but he had the gentlest soul. And that made him powerful in ways no one expected. His first mission was to watch a boy. Not just any boy. A boy who had no idea who he was. A boy who thought the world had forgotten him. A boy named Percy Jackson. Grover didn't introduce himself as a satyr at first. He just showed up as a friend. An awkward, nervous kid with a limp and a kind smile. He made Percy laugh. Gave him space. Protected him from shadows Percy didn't even see. He carried fear in his heart, fear of failing, fear of monsters, fear of losing his only chance to prove himself. But he never let Percy see it. Then came the storm, the minotaur, the chase, the loss of Percy's mom, and the long, panicked run to Camp Half-Blood. Grover ran until his hooves bled. He didn't stop, didn't flinch, not even when thunder cracked overhead and trees splintered behind them, because Percy needed him, and Grover would rather die than let another demigod fall. At Camp Half-Blood, Grover never asked for recognition. While the other satyrs joked and played panpipes by the fire, Grover wandered. He liked the edges of the forest, the border between camp and wild. He'd press his palm to tree trunks and whisper, "Thank you." He'd pick up fallen bird eggs and place them gently in higher branches. He knew the names of every dryad, every nymph, every stream that sang when you sat beside it long enough. There were moments of peace, moments that belong in a dream. Like the time Grover sat at the edge of the strawberry fields, watching bees float from flower to flower. The sun dipped low. The wind smelled of soil and sugar. He played a slow tune on his pipes, and nearby, a doe lay down beside him, trusting, breathing in rhythm with his melody. For that moment, Grover felt it. The wild, the calm, the god of nature brushing gently across his spirit. But there was always a call, a pull, a whisper from deep in the woods. Keep looking. Grover didn't want to leave his friends, but the world needed him too. So he became a searcher. He packed light, his pipes, a water skin, a bundle of dried apples, a locket with a pressed violet inside. And he walked through cities, mountains, abandoned gardens, and collapsing temples. He listened for Pan's voice, in rivers, in the howl of wind through caverns, in the last breath of trees that were being cut down. Most would have called it a failure. But Grover called it hope. He came back to camp often, always tired, a little thinner, his hooves dusty, his coat matted. But his smile never faded. He'd sit with Percy and Annabeth by the lake, tell stories of strange birds and hidden groves, fall asleep mid-sentence, head resting against a tree trunk, snoring softly while fireflies danced overhead. Once, he found a forest no mortal had touched. Deep, deep in the heart of a canyon. The trees were older than time. The air was blue with mist. And there, he heard it. A note. A single, breath-like note. Not loud, not clear, but real. He wept. Not because he'd found Pan, but because, for the first time, he knew Pan still existed. In the birdsong, in the moss, in every child who stops to watch a caterpillar crawl. Grover returned to Camp Half-Blood that night, and didn't speak a word. He just walked to the big house, sat on the porch, and watched the moon rise over the trees. Chiron came to sit beside him. Didn't ask questions. Grover whispered, "I heard him." Chiron placed a hand on his shoulder. And that was enough. Let's pause now. Breathe in the forest. Imagine Grover's favorite place, a quiet glade, rings of mushrooms like fairy circles, a slow, bubbling creek, willow trees weeping into the water. You're lying on a patch of moss, Grover beside you, humming something ancient and kind. The stars peek between branches. The air hums with crickets and distant laughter. Grover's eyes close. His breathing slows. And you know, you're safe. This was Grover's journey. Not heroic in the way stories like to tell, but brave in a quieter way. He searched not for fame, but for peace. Not for power, but for proof that the wild still mattered. And he found it. In whispers. In roots. In the space between leaves. And tonight, he shares that with you. Grover never stopped believing. Even when the search took him into silence. Even when others said Pan was gone forever. Even when he was tired and sore and full of doubt. He kept walking. Because some hearts are tuned to things others can't hear. And Grover's heart was tuned to nature. To the way trees speak when the wind moves through them. To the way a dying forest still tries to bloom one last time. To the way a single daisy growing from a crack in the pavement can still sing. There's a place behind cabin 4 Demeter's cabin where Grover likes to sit at dawn. No one else knows about it. The trees arch into a perfect circle. The ground is soft with moss, and the sky opens up just enough to let golden sunlight trickle through like rain. Grover sits there, every morning when he can, cross-legged, eyes closed. He listens. Not for words. Not for answers. Just for life. The squirrels. The birds. The worms wriggling through the roots. He breathes in and breathes out. And in that stillness, he's not a protector. Not a guide. Not a satyr trying to prove himself. He's just Grover. Once, Tyson Percy's Cyclops brother followed Grover to that clearing. He didn't say anything. Just plopped down beside him and closed one big eye. The two sat together. No words. No instructions. Just the sound of nature. And two unlikely souls. Learning how to be still. Grover smiled after a while. Nice, isn't it? He whispered. Tyson nodded. Tree quiet. Grover chuckled. Yeah, tree quiet. And that became a phrase between them. Whenever the world was too loud, too fast, too hard. Let's go find some tree quiet. During festivals at Camp Half-Blood, when campers dress in laurel crowns and the air is full of singing, Grover always keeps to the edges. Not because he doesn't love the celebration, but because his joy is quieter. He'll hand out wildflower necklaces he weaved himself, hide enchanted acorns under benches, sing little blessings over the campfire so the flames dance higher for just a moment. No one thanks him. Most don't even know. But he doesn't need credit. He's a guardian of small things. And the small things notice. There's an old sycamore tree near the woods. One of the first trees planted when the camp was founded. Grover visits it every week. He plays it songs. Tells it stories. Leans against its trunk and watches clouds pass. Once, after a long journey, he collapsed at its base in tears. Exhausted. Ashamed. Convinced he had failed. The tree didn't speak. Didn't move. But a single leaf floated down and landed gently on his chest. Grover looked at it and smiled. Sometimes, the wild answers. You just have to be still long enough to hear it. At night, Grover walks alone. Through the garden paths, around the cabins, past the stables and training fields. His hooves make soft clicks on the stone paths. He hums to himself. The moon follows. Sometimes he ends up by the canoe lake. Sits at the dock, feet in the water. He remembers his first days here, how scared he was, how small he felt. And now, he's still scared sometimes. Still feels small, but he knows something now that he didn't know back then. He matters. Not because of how strong he is, not because of who he protects, but because he listens. He loves. And he hopes. Grover Underwood will never be the loudest hero. He'll never stand on a mountaintop shouting victory. But when the forest needs a voice, when the forgotten need a friend, when the wild needs a heartbeat, he answers. With his pipes, with his heart, with his soul. Tonight, you sleep beneath the same stars Grover watches. If the breeze feels warmer, If the trees outside your window sway a little more gently. If your dreams carry a melody you can't quite place. That's Grover. Watching. Protecting. Playing lullabies on the wind. Sleep well, wanderer. The wild is with you. And Grover is too. Camp Half-Blood is different at night. The cabins sleep. The swords are stored. The training fields lie quiet. And something ancient begins to settle over the valley. A hush. A presence. A kind of magic that only arrives when the last torch has gone out. This is not the camp of shouting centaurs and flying arrows. This is the camp of shadows and moonlight. Of flickering candlelight behind half-closed curtains. Of kids breathing softly under woven blankets, dreaming of gods and monsters. And home. It begins near the strawberry fields. The sun has just set. The last light casts everything in gold. The strawberries glow like little rubies beneath their leaves. Satyrs finish their day's harvest and head toward the dining pavilion, whistling slow, sweet tunes. And just as the first stars appear in the sky, the fireflies wake up. They rise all at once, a slow-moving galaxy. Tiny golden lights floating above the soil. Drifting between rows of berries, over the stone path, through the tall grass, like ancient spirits on night patrol. They're not in a hurry. They never are. At Camp Half-Blood, even the fireflies have time. Further down the path, past Cabin 9 and the forge, the air grows warmer. Not hot, just alive. The kind of warmth that sits gently on your skin like a wool blanket. From inside the Hephaestus cabin, a faint orange glow still pulses. Not flames, not work. Just coals left over from the day's forge. Still warm, still whispering. A few campers linger here. Soot-smudged hands, tired eyes, but proud smiles. They speak in low voices, sharing blueprints, telling stories of what their hands made today. No one raises their voice. The sparks are sleeping now. So are the machines. Beyond them, near the stables, you'll hear the Pegasi shift. They don't sleep like humans. They rest standing up, heads low, manes brushing against one another, tails swishing gently at invisible dreams. One of them, Blackjack, lifts his head. He doesn't whinny, just blinks and watches the stars. Sometimes he dreams of flying above the clouds, above Olympus. Sometimes he dreams of Percy, and when he does, his wings twitch, as if he's already taken off. Inside the Athena cabin, Annabeth sleeps at her desk. A parchment scroll lies beneath her cheek. Her pencil rests between two unfinished blueprints. The oil lamp still burns, flickering, slow. And beside her, a little figurine of the Parthenon she carved in secret. Out of wood. Not perfect, but it matters. Because in this moment, her breathing soft, her dreams drifting toward Olympus, she is both the child and the architect. A girl who builds worlds, even in her sleep. Chiron walks the border at night, in centaur form, each hoofstep quiet, measured. He does not sleep often. There are too many things to guard, too many dreams to protect. But he doesn't patrol with fear. He simply walks. His bow slung across his back. His cloak pulled tight against the wind. Every so often he stops, places a hand on a tree, listens. The camp breathes with him. There is no danger, only peace. So he continues. The dining pavilion sits empty now. The goblets have refilled themselves with water. The plates have vanished. The long tables are clean, but not cold. It feels like laughter still hangs in the air, ghost echoes of dinner-time jokes, and moments of clinking forks. and kids whispering secrets with their heads close together. The gods' offerings still smolder in the brazier. Wisps of scented smoke curl toward the sky, carrying words, thoughts, and wishes to Olympus. Not all prayers are loud. Some are barely a whisper, and the gods listen anyway. In cabin 6, the Athena cabin, you can hear the soft sound of pages turning. Someone is still awake, reading under a blanket, a book about ancient cities, or maybe constellations. Their eyes grow heavier with each word, but they're not trying to fight sleep. They're waiting for it, because dreams at Camp Half-Blood are sacred. They don't always make sense, but they always come from somewhere. Sometimes the oracle visits. Sometimes a god sends a message. Sometimes it's just a memory of a birthday cake, or a snow day, or a hug that lasted longer than it needed to. Here, even your dreams are protected. The lake is still, its surface smooth as glass, reflecting the sky in perfect symmetry. On the dock, a blanket lies folded. Someone forgot it during a stargazing session, or maybe left it on purpose. For the next camper, because that's what Camp Half-Blood is, a place where forgotten things are found again, and no kindness is wasted. The naiads beneath the surface swim slowly tonight. They're not in a hurry. They never are. They hum and chorus, their voices faint but ancient. Songs passed down for millennia. Lullabies older than Olympus. And if you listen closely, if your breathing slows just enough, you might hear them sing your name. Back in cabin 3, Poseidon's cabin, Percy sleeps with the window open. The ocean breeze floats in, carrying salt and memories. His blankets rise and fall with each breath. His hair moves slightly with the wind. There is a seashell on his nightstand, glowing faintly blue. Sometimes, it pulses. And somewhere miles beneath the sea, Poseidon feels it. And he knows his son is safe. There's a final place to visit. Past the forge, past the cabins, past the armory and the amphitheater. The top of Half-Blood Hill, where Thalia's tree stands, tall and strong, always awake, always watching. Her branches sway, even when there's no wind. Her roots stretch deep, even when no one notices. And at her base, the golden fleece glows softly, a shield, a promise, a kind of ancient lullaby in golden thread. It protects the camp, even while everyone sleeps. Especially then. The night deepens. Even the stars feel drowsy now. Their twinkles slower, their light softer. Cabins snore gently. Windows glow, then dim, then go dark. And above it all, the gods look down. Not with judgment, not with fury, with curiosity, with affection, with something like peace. Because even gods, when they see a camp of children sleeping safely, they smile. If you were standing in the middle of Camp Half-Blood right now, you'd see almost nothing move. But you'd feel everything. The quiet, the love, the old magic that hums beneath the soil. Because here, at night, Camp Half-Blood is not just a training ground. It is a home. And everyone, even the loneliest demigod, belongs here. Close your eyes. Let the sounds of the camp lull you. Let the breeze wrap around your shoulders. Let the stars draw you in. You are safe. You are seen. And sleep is near. Before she was a hero, before she outsmarted monsters, built cities and battlefields, and stood beside gods, Annabeth Chase was a little girl, sitting cross-legged on the floor of a library, holding a book almost too heavy for her arms, reading about places she had never seen. But somehow, already missed. She always loved stories. Not just the ones with dragons and quests, but the ones about building, creating, solving puzzles. No one else could. She liked figuring out how things fit together. Not just the bricks and blueprints, but people. Silences. The way one sentence could make someone feel safe. And how a single question could open a locked door in someone's heart. Annabeth didn't always feel safe. Not in the beginning. She was small, too smart, too quiet in rooms that wanted loud. And when she told the other kids she dreamed of rebuilding ancient Athens, they laughed. But she didn't stop dreaming. She just stopped telling. She kept the blueprints in her head, memorized every column, every stone, built temples in her notebooks, sketched floor plans in the margins of her tests. While other kids counted minutes until recess, Annabeth was designing the foundations of something that didn't exist yet, but would. She didn't have many toys, but she had a bucket of Legos. Not the colorful kind, just gray, white, beige, the colors of marble, the colors of history. She built towers every night before bed, carefully, quietly. Not just because she liked it, but because building something made her feel like the world could be fixed, like broken things could be reassembled, if you just paid enough attention. Then came the monsters, the voices in the dark, the strange dreams. The night she had to run, she was 7, too young to explain why the shadows felt alive, too smart to pretend they didn't. She packed her backpack with a flashlight, 3 granola bars, a pencil case, and a rolled-up blueprint she'd drawn of a treehouse fortress, just in case. And she left. For a while, she was alone, moving between shadows, sleeping in alleyways, keeping her back to the wall. But even then, she was planning. Counting steps, reading patterns, mapping cities in her mind. If she couldn't find safety, she would build it. Then she met Thalia and Luke. And for a while, she wasn't alone anymore. Luke was fast, confident. Always 3 steps ahead, or so he made it seem. Thalia was fierce, protective. Her voice sharp enough to scare away nightmares. And Annabeth. Annabeth was the one who kept their path straight, who noticed which doors creaked and which ones didn't, who remembered to mark their trail in chalk, who said left when Luke was about to say right. She was just a kid, but her mind was an army. At Camp Half-Blood, things weren't easier, but they were clearer. She was claimed by Athena, goddess of wisdom, of strategy, of crafts. It made sense. It felt right. But it also meant she had to be the smartest, the calmest, the strongest. And some nights, that was heavy. She rarely let anyone see her cry. Not because she didn't want to, but because it made her feel like the blueprint had failed, like the structure she was building inside herself had cracked. So she rebuilt, silently, layer by layer, brick by brick, with books, with knowledge, with the quiet comfort of knowing what page she left off on. But even the strongest foundations need rest. And some of Annabeth's softest memories are the ones she never told anyone. There was the night she stayed up late in the Athena cabin, copying blueprints by candlelight. Everyone else had gone to sleep. But she couldn't. Not until she figured out the alignment of the roof columns on a temple from Rhodes. Not until the proportions made sense. The candle flickered. The ink bled. But when she finally finished, her pencil shaking, she looked at the page and smiled. It was perfect, balanced, strong. And in that moment, she felt okay. There was the afternoon by the canoe lake. No battles, no quests. Just Percy sitting beside her. They didn't talk. Just skipped stones. Counted the ripples. Watched the sky slowly change from blue to violet to gold. At some point, he handed her a rock. Too round to skip, too smooth to ignore. "I think this one looks like an owl," he said. She looked at it. And it kinda did. She kept it. Still has it, in fact. Tucked in a drawer beside her compass and her favorite mechanical pencil. There was the evening she found Grover crying behind the stables. Something about a tree being cut down. A tree no one else seemed to care about. He thought no one noticed. But she did. She sat beside him. Didn't say a word. Just handed him her extra camp necklace. And for a while, they just sat in silence. She never asked why it mattered, because she already understood. Some things you don't need words for. There was the time she got injured during Capture the Flag. A sprained ankle. Not serious, but painful. Percy offered to carry her. She refused, but he walked with her, at her pace, all the way back to the Athena cabin. Didn't say anything. Didn't joke. Just, walked. And afterward, when she sat with her foot up on a stack of pillows, he came back with a blue cupcake. "Victory cupcake," he said. She pretended to roll her eyes, but she still smiled when he wasn't looking. She has memories of stars. Of lying on the roof of the Athena cabin, wrapped in a blanket, a notebook open on her chest, tracing constellations with her finger, giving them new names, new stories. One she called the Builder, another, the broken tower that stood again. Not myths, not legends, just hopes, carved into sky. She once made a miniature Parthenon out of gingerbread, just because she could. She used marshmallows for columns, licorice for beams, royal icing for the steps. It collapsed halfway through, and she laughed, out loud. The real kind of laugh, not a polite one, not a strategic one, just joy. Sticky-fingered, frosting-covered joy. She rebuilt it better, stronger, less perfect, but more real. There's a part of Annabeth that only wakes up late at night, when the camp is quiet, when the stars have taken over, when the world feels still enough to listen. That part isn't a warrior, or a strategist, or a daughter of a goddess. That part is a girl, with big dreams and bigger fears. And when that part speaks, she doesn't use words. She uses blueprints, and sketchbooks, and hands that tremble only after the battle is over. She dreams of cities, not ones made of gold, not Olympus, but cities where people feel safe, where bridges are strong, and towers never collapse. She dreams of building a home, not just for herself, but for everyone who's ever felt like the ground under them could give way at any moment. A home that holds, a home that stands, a home that whispers, "You're not alone." If you walk past her cabin late at night, you might see a faint light under the door. And if you peeked through the window, you'd see her. At her desk, pencil in hand, glasses sliding down her nose, muttering to herself about measurements and fault lines. And maybe you'd think, she's working too hard. But she's not. She's dreaming. In the only language she knows. And even as her head begins to nod, even as the pencil slips from her fingers, even as sleep claims her, her dreams keep building. Stone by stone, story by story, heart by heart, Annabeth Chase doesn't just fight monsters. She builds worlds and fixes what others leave broken, and carries hope like an architect carries a compass, always pointed towards something better. Tonight, she dreams in blueprints. And if you fall asleep now, you might just see the future she's designing. One full of light, and bridges, and towers that never fall. The world of demigods is filled with danger, but it's also filled with wonder. And wonder often hides in the quietest corners. In the flutter of wings above a moonlit field. In the ripple of water when something ancient swims just beneath the surface. In the hush of a glade when the trees lean in to listen. Tonight, let's leave the monsters behind. No fangs, no claws, no shadows chasing you through tunnels. Tonight we visit the magical creatures who bring peace, companionship, stillness. The ones who don't roar, but hum. Let's start in the sky. High above Camp Half-Blood, where the clouds drift like ships on an ocean of wind. You'll sometimes see them. Wings like feathers dipped in silver. Eyes alert. Hooves pounding the air itself. Pegasi. They don't flap like birds. They glide. Silent. Effortless. They sleep standing up, wings folded tightly to their sides, dreaming of wide skies and soft clouds. One of them, Blackjack, is more stubborn than most, and more loyal. He's flown through storms, through fire, through chaos. But when he's calm, when the night is quiet, he hums. A low, almost imperceptible vibration through his chest, like thunder before it decides to strike. Campers often leave apples for them in a wooden bucket outside the stables. The Pegasi take them delicately, always the ones with the fewest bruises. They're gentle like that. And if you've ever dreamed of flying without fear, that was them lending you wings. Now, let's go underground. Beneath the waves. Deeper still. To a realm not of darkness, but of color. Hippocampi. Half horse, half fish. Tails that shimmer like liquid gemstones. Manes that ripple like seaweed in a current. They don't speak, but they understand. When Poseidon rides, he chooses them. But even without a rider, they play. Leaping through coral arches, chasing bubbles, circling one another in spirals of light. Percy once said they laughed, and he meant it. Not with mouths, but with joy, with splashes, with the kind of movement that feels like music. At night, they rest in kelp beds. The water slows. Their fins twitch slowly in dreams. And sometimes, if you place a seashell to your ear, you'll hear them. Not the ocean, not a current, but the heartbeat of something wild and kind. Now let's walk into the woods. Soft moss beneath our feet. Branches arching overhead like a cathedral. The deeper you go, the quieter it gets. Until all that remains is the feeling that you are being watched. Not with fear, but curiosity. From the trunks of ancient oaks, from between roots and vines, from streams that glint like polished silver, come the spirits of nature. Dryads, tree spirits, shy, gentle, patient beyond belief. They move like wind shadows, barefoot, or wrapped in robes made of leaves and bark. They tend their trees like family, sing to them, sleep within them. Some campers say the dryads speak in riddles. Others say they don't speak at all, only smile and guide and vanish. But everyone agrees, the forest breathes because they are there. Along the streams, where the water narrows and glides between rocks, live the naiads, water nymphs. They laugh louder than dryads. They play games with pebbles and frogs, and sometimes splash the campers on purpose. But when the sun sets, they become still, sitting on rocks, combing their hair with reeds, humming songs older than Olympus. Their laughter can become lullabies. Their joy becomes stillness. And if you ever cry beside a river, you may feel a cool hand brush your cheek. That's them. They don't ask questions. They don't expect answers. They just stay. Then there are the satyrs. Half goat, half human, but all heart. They play the panpipes, dance when no one's looking, sleep in nests made of straw and clover. But they are not fools. They are guardians of wild places, of innocent things, of kids who don't yet know who they are. Grover is one of them, brave, kind, always watching. Satyrs don't fight with swords. They fight with songs, with care, with belief. If a tree is dying, they grieve. If a child is lost, they go looking, no matter how long it takes. And when the world forgets the wild, satyrs remember, because someone has to. Deep in the camp's most ancient grove, there's a creature who visits only when the moon is highest. Some say he is just a myth. Others say he waits. The god of the wild, Pan. You may never see him, not with your eyes, but you might feel him, in the way a flower blooms in a crack in the sidewalk, in the hush of the forest after a fresh snowfall, in the way a deer looks at you, like it already knows your name. Grover once heard him. Just once. A breath, a note, and the feeling that everything was going to be okay, even if no one else understood. Back at camp, there's a creature who walks the paths at night, hooves soft on the stone, tall, wise, kind. Chiron, half man, half horse, but fully present. He taught Achilles, Hercules, Jason. But he teaches campers now how to wield a sword, how to heal a wound, how to tell the difference between bravery and pride. He walks slowly, listens deeply, and sometimes, when no one is around, he plays the lyre. Soft, sad notes, carried on wind. Chiron remembers every name, every camper, every goodbye. But he carries that weight with grace. And when he watches the stars, you can almost see the constellations watching back. In the caverns beneath the camp, far away from torches and noise, live the manticore moths. Not dangerous, not enormous, just strange and glowing. They flutter between walls, drawn to magic, to dreams. Some say they whisper while you sleep, spinning silk not for webs, but for memory. When one lands on your shoulder, you'll feel a shiver, then warmth. And the dream you have that night will stay with you forever. Even the cabins are home to gentle creatures. Owls perch on Athena's roof, silent, wise. Foxes sleep curled near the Apollo cabin, their fur glowing gold in the sun. Tiny fire lizards dart around the forge. Harmless, helpful, warm to the touch. There's a squirrel who's lived near the Artemis cabin for 10 years. She steals offerings sometimes, but everyone forgives her. Because in a world that's always rushing, the creatures remind the campers to slow down, to listen, to care, to notice. Not all magical beings are loud, or powerful, or full of tricks. Some are just present, in the rustle of leaves, the flick of a tail, the hum of wings just before sleep. They do not want to be heroes, or rulers, or remembered in songs. They just want to be. And in that, there is a kind of magic stronger than any spell. So tonight, As you lie in bed, let yourself drift. Imagine a Pegasus circling above your roof, its wings catching moonlight. Imagine a dryad watching from a tree just beyond your window, smiling as you breathe. Imagine a hippocampus swimming in the ocean miles away, but somehow connected to your heart. You're not alone, not in this world, not in any dream, because magic lives in softness, in quiet, in the unseen. And if you fall asleep with wonder in your chest, that is their gift. The magical creatures of the Percyverse don't wait for war. They wait for you, for your stillness, for your kindness, for your breath. They are listening. And now, you can rest. Dreams have always followed Percy Jackson, even before he knew who he was, even before Camp Half-Blood, before monsters and gods, before fate whispered his name. He would wake in the middle of the night, heart racing, sheets twisted around him like vines, and he would wonder, why do I always feel like I've just come back from somewhere? Some dreams were loud, crashing waves, storms of memory, flashes of bronze and stone and crumbling altars. But others were quiet, soft, like whispers in water, like a voice at the bottom of the ocean, echoing upward. And those were the ones he remembered longest. Let's step into one now. You're in a field. The grass is glowing. Not green, but silver. The stars are close enough to touch. You hear footsteps. Slow. Measured. Not threatening. Just present. Percy turns. No monsters. No gods. Just a figure wrapped in a deep blue cloak. Face hidden. But somehow, familiar. The figure doesn't speak. They hold out their hand. And Percy knows. This is a choice. Not a battle. Not a punishment. Just a path. And when he wakes, he doesn't remember the hand. Or the figure. Just the silver grass. And a feeling. That something is coming. Percy's dreams are rarely just dreams. They're visions. Memories. Prophecies in disguise. At Camp Half-Blood, the other campers talk about nightmares, visions of monsters, battles, and loss. But Percy's dreams are different. Sometimes, they show the past. Sometimes, they show the future. Sometimes, they show something in between. Something not real, but also not false. He once dreamed of Nico. Long before Nico understood what he was. They were standing at the edge of a cliff. Below them, a field of bones. Above, stars swirling like galaxies inside galaxies. Nico didn't speak. But he looked at Percy and said everything with his eyes. The kind of look that says, "You don't understand me now. But one day, you will." He once dreamed of his mother. Not in danger, not trapped. Just sitting at the kitchen table, reading, smiling. And in the dream, Percy sat across from her. No monsters, no sword on his lap, just orange juice and peace. He tried to speak, but no words came. Still, she looked up and nodded, as if to say, "I know you're tired. It's okay. Keep going." He woke up with tears on his face, and the scent of pancakes in his nose, even though he was miles away from home. Sometimes, the dreams are about the sea. Not battleships, not storms, just deep water. Endless, dark, comforting. He'll be floating, weightless, no breath needed, no direction, only the pull of ancient tides. And something calls him, not with words, but with a feeling, a longing, a question, a memory. He once told Grover, "The sea doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in heartbeats." Then, there are the prophecies. Not dreams, not visions, but truths, wrapped in riddles, delivered in verse, sealed in mystery. Given by the Oracle of Delphi, a mummified priestess with eyes that glow green, and a voice that doesn't come from her throat, but from somewhere older than time. The first time Percy stood before her, he didn't know what to expect. But when the mist poured from her mouth, and the prophecy slipped into the room like fog, he felt it. Not fear, not panic, but gravity, as if the world had leaned in and whispered, "You are part of this now." The prophecy was short, cryptic, almost cruel. "You shall go west and face the God who has turned. You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. And you shall fail to save what matters most in the end." It echoed in him for months. Every word, every pause. Not just because it was haunting, but because it felt like a mirror. Like it knew him. Better than he knew himself. Prophecies follow Percy. Not like shadows, but like music he can't stop hearing. Sometimes they come in pieces. A phrase overheard in a dream. A symbol burned into sky. A whisper inside a ripple on the lake. Sometimes it's not the prophecy itself. It's the waiting. The weight of what's coming. The silence before it arrives. He once dreamed of Mount Olympus. Not the throne room. Not the arguments. Not the power. Just the marble floor. The clouds beneath it. He walked across it barefoot, each step echoing into nothing. And at the far end, a door. Gold. Locked. Breathing. He didn't open it. He just stood there. And when he woke, he realized some doors aren't meant to be opened yet. Percy doesn't always understand his dreams. Sometimes they frighten him. Sometimes they make him feel like a piece on someone else's board. Sometimes they just confuse him. But always, they mean something, even when they don't. Once, he dreamed of a girl he didn't know. She was standing at the edge of a river, throwing stones, alone. She wore a necklace with a broken owl charm, and when he stepped closer, she vanished. That dream didn't make sense for years, but when he met her, not long after, he remembered everything. Even the way the stone skipped 3 times, then sank. The gods rarely explain the dreams. They speak in symbols, half-truths, warnings wrapped in riddles. But Percy has learned to listen, not just with his ears, but with his instincts, his heart, because some truths can't be spoken, only felt. Annabeth once asked him, "How do you sleep with so much unknown?" And Percy shrugged, smiled a little, and said, "I don't sleep. I drift." And so, he drifts. Every night. Through memories not his own. Through futures that haven't happened yet. Through oceans that never touch land. There's a dream he has often. More feeling than story. More sensation than plot. He's swimming. Deeper and deeper. Past coral. Past ruins. Past statues half swallowed by sand. And then, a cave. Inside, a heartbeat. He never reaches it. He always wakes up first. But one night, just once, he heard something. A voice. Not Poseidon. Not the Oracle. Just a whisper. Soon. Dreams are part of who Percy is. They don't guide him. They warn him. They show him what might come, so he can decide who to be when it does. Sometimes he dreams of peace, of a house by the sea, of Annabeth sketching under the sun, of Grover playing pipes in the garden, of Tyson collecting seashells on the beach. No battles, no gods, just time. And in those dreams, he sleeps best. You may be dreaming now too, floating, weightless, inside Percy's world. You may see flashes, a green trident, a face in a cave, a path made of stars, a choice waiting on a mountain. Don't worry, it's not a prophecy. Not tonight. It's just the sea, showing you pieces of truth. Because dreams are where truths begin. And sometimes, truths are soft, like tides. Sleep now. Let your own dreams come. Let Percy drift ahead, and you follow quietly behind. Through visions. Through tides. Through memory. There's nothing to fear. Only meaning. Only motion. Only the voice of the ocean. Reminding you, you are not alone. Close your eyes. Take a slow breath in. And imagine the ocean. Not the crashing waves or raging storms. Not the roar of battle or the spray of sea foam against cliffs. Imagine the ocean the way Percy Jackson feels it. Deep. Quiet. Endless. A place where sound becomes memory. Where light dances like dreams. Where everything moves slowly. And nothing is in a hurry. This is not a place of war. This is a kingdom. A sanctuary. A cathedral made of silence. Let's go down. Beneath the surface. Past the sunlight zone. Where the noise of the world begins to fade. You are not sinking. You are floating. Suspended in the bluest space you've ever known. Around you, glowfish drift like stars. Kelp waves lazily in the current. Tiny bubbles spiral upward, carrying secrets to the sky. And far, far below, something stirs. Welcome to Poseidon's realm. The sea god does not live in a castle. He lives in a world sculpted from coral and current, built from stone, salt, and memory. Here, the walls breathe. The columns sway with the tide. The palace grows, ever-changing, never the same twice. And no doors are locked, because nothing here wants to be kept in. Everything moves, even the stillness. Percy's first visit here wasn't loud. There were no trumpets, no parades, no thrones carved in lightning. There was just water and a voice. Not booming, not grand, just familiar. My son? And Percy knew. Before he saw the trident, before he saw the crown, before he saw the palace stretching out beneath him like a forgotten dream, he knew. This was home. Poseidon's palace is not made of gold. It's made of silence. Of pillars woven from seashells and sand. Of floors carved from whalebone and pearl. Of light that filters down through currents like falling stars. There are no torches. The walls glow on their own. Soft. Dim. Alive. Jellyfish float past balconies. Seahorses guard the staircases. Crabs scuttle across crystal walkways. Busy but never rushed. And in the distance, a whale sings. Let's take a tour. You swim slowly, arms at your sides, the water carrying you like a lullaby, through archways made of coral, past gardens of bioluminescent plants, into great domes that echo with ancient stories. One dome holds a map, not on paper, but suspended in water. Every sea, every current, every trench and island. It shifts as you watch, like the ocean itself is remembering. Another chamber is filled with music, not instruments. Just sound. The clicks of dolphins, the slow bass notes of whales, the hum of shifting tides. And somehow, it plays in harmony. You don't hear it with your ears. You feel it. In your ribs. In your fingertips. In the base of your spine. It doesn't demand anything. It simply invites you to float. There is a garden here, a floating forest of kelp and anemones. Eels curl around the stalks like ribbon. Clams open and close with the rhythm of the tide. Naiads tend it, laughing quietly, speaking in bubbles and bursts. They do not bow. They do not worship. They simply care. Because in Poseidon's realm, even gods must respect what grows. Poseidon himself walks alone here, not with an army, not with fanfare, just barefoot across the sea floor, tunic flowing behind him, eyes full of storms he never releases. He is not cruel. He is not warm. He is the tide, sometimes rising, sometimes falling, always returning. He does not ask to be followed. He asks to be understood. When Percy walks beside him, they rarely speak, but their silence says enough. Poseidon does not tell Percy he is proud. He does not explain his choices. He does not promise safety. Instead, he places a hand on Percy's shoulder, and the waves calm. One night in a dream, Percy stood on the balcony of the palace. The ocean stretched out before him, silver and black. And beside him, Poseidon said, "The sea is not fair, but it is honest." Percy didn't reply. He just looked out at the water and understood. This kingdom holds more than beauty. It holds memory. The remains of ships that never returned. Statues worn smooth by centuries. Letters and bottles that never reached their shores. Nothing here is lost. Everything sinks. But nothing is forgotten. Even grief drifts slowly through the current, waiting for the right heart to find it. In a smaller room, deep inside the palace, there's a shrine. Not to a god, but to a mother. Sally Jackson's face, carved into coral, a gentle expression. Eyes closed, as if in prayer. No one visits this room, except Percy. And sometimes, Poseidon. The water in this chamber is still, completely still, as if even the ocean knows when to be quiet. Sometimes Percy sleeps here, not because he has to, because he wants to. The water cradles him. The walls pulse like a heartbeat. The ceiling shifts with stars reflected from the surface far above. And he dreams, not of battles, not of quests, but of salt, of light, of a childhood where the sea was always near, even when he didn't understand why. There's a legend in this realm, told by the hippocampi, of a day when the sea calms completely. Every wave halts, every fish stops. And in that moment, just for a second, Poseidon weeps. No one knows why, but the tears turn to pearls. And those pearls become stars in the deep. The hippocampi never lie. They just swim and remember. Back in the main hall of the palace, Percy once saw a mural. It stretched across the entire wall, shifting like liquid paint. At first, he didn't recognize it, but then he realized it was him. Not just his face, but his life, his battles, his choices, his friends. Each moment painted in blues and greens, whites and shadows. And at the center, his mother. And behind her, the sea. Poseidon doesn't say why the mural exists, but it's clear. This palace may belong to the sea god, but Percy, he's part of its foundation. You can visit it too, anytime. Not with a boat, not with a map, but with stillness, with breath, with that quiet feeling right before you fall asleep, when your thoughts slow, and you remember what peace feels like. That's the entrance. The door is always open. So drift now, deeper. Let the ocean carry you, Let the palace rise around you. Let the sea remember you. The way it remembers every shell, every ripple, every story. You are not a visitor here. You belong. Poseidon's kingdom is not made of stone. It is made of memory, and silence, and depth. It is not a place of fear. It is a place of weightlessness. And tonight, you float. You are surrounded by peace, by light, by the soft pull of tides that want nothing from you. Accept your stillness. Let yourself rest now. The sea will hold you, just as it held him. There's a hallway in Poseidon's palace that few ever see. It's narrow, quiet, lined with glowing shells instead of torches. The walls shimmer like mother of pearl, constantly shifting with reflections of the sea. This corridor doesn't lead to a throne, or a war room, or anything with a name carved in stone. It leads to a memory. A small room, circular in shape, where time slows to a whisper. The water here is warmer, softer, as if even the ocean has stopped to breathe. In the center floats a sculpture, a child curled within a seashell, eyes closed, dreaming. It's not a statue of a god, not a warrior, not a hero. It's a boy, innocent, unaware of who he will become. Poseidon built this room long before Percy was born, not as prophecy, but as a promise that one day someone would rise who did not chase power, but peace. Someone who would protect both the gods and the sea, not with fury, but with heart. And when Percy first stood in that room, he didn't speak. He didn't ask questions. He just floated beside the sculpture and whispered, "I'll try." Now the ocean wraps around you like a lullaby. You feel its weight not heavy, but grounding, real. The world above is distant. The surface is just a memory. There are no clocks here, no battles, no worries. Only the water. And you. And the sense that this kingdom, this vast, quiet realm, knows your name. You're welcome here. Always. You don't need to breathe. You don't need to fight. You don't even need to understand. You only need to drift. Because here, beneath the sea, in Poseidon's gentle halls, everything is at peace. Not every camper at Camp Half-Blood is claimed by the Big Three. Not everyone wields a storm or commands a wave. Some powers are quieter, more delicate, more mysterious. But that doesn't make them weaker. In fact, the smallest cabins often hold the deepest magic. Tonight we take a peaceful walk, past the familiar, and into the softly glowing doorways of cabins you might not know, where every child of the gods dreams differently, but sleeps under the same stars. We begin with cabin 15, the Hypnos cabin. It's easy to miss. The door is always half open. Vines creep up the sides like lazy fingers. Moss covers the windows, softening the moonlight that filters through. Inside, it always smells like lavender and old books. The campers here sleep more than the others. They don't rush. They don't shout. They lie on bunks carved from driftwood, under quilts stitched with scenes from dreams. Some talk in their sleep. Some float above their beds. Some hold notebooks filled with symbols no one else can read. If you walk past this cabin at night, you'll feel it. A pull. Not dangerous. Not dark. Just inviting. Like the feeling you get right before you fall asleep. Like the in-between place where everything feels possible and safe. Next is cabin 14, the Iris cabin. Not many campers stay here, but the cabin glows like a sunrise even in darkness. The walls shift in color, soft pink, gold, pale green, soft blue, like light passing through stained glass. Inside, rainbows dance in floating droplets. They shimmer over the beds, refracted off crystals strung from the ceiling. These campers are artists, messengers, bridge builders. They know how to say the right thing, the kind thing. They send messages across the world through beams of sunlight and drops of water. But at night, they light candles that glow in every color. And they fall asleep under skies of their own making, tiny rainbows floating gently above their pillows. Then, there's Cabin 9, the Hephaestus cabin. It's warm here, always. The beds are built from scraps of metal and wire. The walls are lined with tools, sketches, gears, and unfinished inventions. You'd expect noise. Sparks. Hammers. But at night, this cabin hums softly. Like a machine resting. Like an old song remembered. The campers sleep deeply. Their palms often streaked with oil and soot. Their dreams full of blueprints and blue fire. Sometimes, one of them wakes up at midnight, scribbles something on a notepad, then falls right back asleep. The next morning, they don't remember why. But the invention always works. Cabin 10. Aphrodite's cabin is not what you expect. Yes, it's lovely. Yes, the beds are neatly made and the curtains float just right. But it's not shallow. It's not vain. It's soft. A place filled with gentle touches and warm smells. Rose petals, perfume, sea breeze, vanilla. At night, the lights dim low. Campers write letters to people they miss. Paint their nails. Hum love songs half remembered from childhood. And when they fall asleep, they dream of gardens, of music, of hands holding hands without fear. Love here is not loud. It's steady, safe, and never forced. Then comes Cabin 20, the Hecate cabin. Magic lives here. Not the flashy kind, but the kind that whispers, that glows faintly under your skin, that waits until you're quiet enough to notice it. The cabin is built of dark stone, etched with glowing runes. Candles float midair, flickering without flame. Jars of herbs line the walls labeled in Greek, Latin, and languages long forgotten. At night, the campers perform silent rituals. Small ones, gentle ones, a spell for good dreams, a charm against fear, a thread tied around the wrist to bring courage. They fall asleep to the sound of bubbling cauldrons and wake to the smell of rosemary and ink. They don't always remember what they dream, but they always wake wiser. There's also Cabin 6, Athena's cabin, a quiet order to everything. Books stacked neatly, armor polished, parchment rolled. You'd think it too strict. But at night, there's comfort in the structure. Every bunk has a small reading lamp, and as the cabin drifts off to sleep, you'll hear pages turning one by one, until silence. Some dream of puzzles, others dream of cities. And in their sleep, they sometimes speak aloud. Wait, I see it now. Or, move that column to the left. Their dreams build things. And every morning, they wake up with answers. Bin 7. Apollo's cabin hums with warmth. Even in darkness, there's golden light behind the windows. Campers sleep beside their instruments, lyres, guitars, notebooks of poems. One strums absent-mindedly until their eyes close. Another sleeps with sunglasses on, even at night. Their dreams are vivid, full of color and rhythm and sound. Sometimes, they wake with a song in their chest. Sometimes, they whisper lines of prophecy they don't understand, then go back to sleep. Apollo's children don't fear dreams. They flow through them, sing in them, and return glowing. Let's not forget Cabin 13, Hades. Its walls are dark stone. The torches burn cold blue. It feels colder, quieter. But it isn't sad. It's respectful. Inside, campers leave small tokens beside their beds. Coins, feathers, pressed flowers. They don't speak much, but their eyes are deep. And when they sleep, they dream of memory, of faces long gone, of promises still kept. They are not haunted, they are held by the past, by the earth, by something older than fear. There are cabins still empty, cabins waiting for children not yet born, or not yet found. But even they hold presence, because in Camp Half-Blood, every cabin matters, even if the god is quiet, even if the stories are still unfolding. There's room, there's light, and there's always a bed made, just in case. The other cabins of Camp Half-Blood are more than buildings. They are hearts, stories, shelters for kids who don't know where else they belong. And at night, when the stars stretch above them, when the wind quiets, when the last candle goes out, they dream together. Different cabins, different gods, one family. Sleep now. You've walked among them, and maybe one of these cabins is waiting for you. The stars are out. The cabins are still. The lake reflects the sky like a mirror. And at the heart of Camp Half-Blood, a fire crackles softly, the final flames of the day rising into the air like glowing leaves. Tonight isn't a quest, not a prophecy, not a test. It's just a night, just a fire, just friends sitting close, saying nothing loud, but meaning everything. Percy sits cross-legged on a log, his elbows resting on his knees. His sword is nowhere nearby. He doesn't need it here. His face is lit by firelight, flickering gold and orange like sunlight dancing in water. Beside him, Grover chews on a granola bar, his hooves propped on a warm stone. He hums quietly between bites, some old satyr tune no one else knows the name of. And on Percy's other side, Annabeth. Her arms are crossed. Not out of distance, just comfort. She watches the fire like it's telling a story only she understands. No one speaks for a while. They don't need to. Sometimes. Friendship sounds like silence. The kind of silence that says, I'm glad you're here. I missed this. You're safe now. After a while, Percy tosses a pine cone into the fire. It pops, sending sparks into the night. Grover smiles. Nice shot. Annabeth raises an eyebrow. He missed? Did not. Did too. They smile. And that's the end of it. The teasing stops. The peace returns. Even their jokes tonight are quiet. Further down the circle, Clarice snores softly. Her head rests on a borrowed sleeping bag. She's still holding a roasted marshmallow in one hand. It's burned black. No one wakes her. She fought hard today. She always does. Even warriors need rest. Near the edge of the light, Tyson is building a tower of stones. Carefully, slowly. One pebble on top of another. No one asks him what it is. He doesn't say. But when it's done, it's the shape of a heart. A little lopsided. A little wobbly. But perfect? Grover nods at him. Tyson beams. A few kids from the Apollo cabin pass around a guitar. The strings are soft. No lyrics. Just a few dreamy chords, floating on the air like fireflies. Someone sings, just once. We are not alone. Then silence. The fire crackles. The wind answers. And nobody claps. Because the moment just is. Percy leans back, his hands behind his head. He watches the stars through the smoke. Do you ever think, he says slowly, that maybe we're allowed to stop? Annabeth glances sideways. Stop? Just pause. Not forever. Just long enough to feel normal. Grover kicks his hoof softly through the dirt. This is normal. For us. They laugh. But it's not bitter. It's true. Because even in a world of monsters and myths, this campfire, this night, this moment is real. And that's enough. Someone brings out hot chocolate. No one asks from where. It just appears, like all the best things do at Camp Half-Blood. Each mug is warm and chipped and a little different. Grover's has a goat on it. Annabeth says strategic sipper. Percy's is plain blue. He takes a sip. Burns his tongue. Annabeth smirks. Told you. The campfire burns lower now. The flame's a little smaller. The glow a little softer. But no one gets up. No one says goodnight. Because sometimes, the best part of being with people you love is saying nothing at all. One by one, the other campers drift away. Someone yawns. Someone says, I'll see you tomorrow. Someone waves sleepily as they vanish into the shadows between cabins. But Percy, Annabeth, and Grover stay. Because this moment belongs to them. Grover speaks softly. Remember the first time we sat here? Percy smiles. Yeah. I was still trying to figure out what a satyr even was. Annabeth grins. And I thought you were going to get yourself killed within the hour. He shrugs. Fair. They all sip. Let the memory settle. It doesn't sting anymore. It shines. Somewhere in the woods, an owl hoots. A breeze brushes the tops of the trees. The stars shift. Time moves gently. Annabeth leans forward. Draws something in the dirt with a stick. It's a circle. Then 3 dots inside it. Then a spiral wrapping around you. What's that? Percy asks. She shrugs. A memory. Of right now. Grover reaches out and traces the spiral with his fingertip. I hope it stays, he whispers. Percy nods. It will. And somehow, they know he's right. The fire burns low. Now just embers. Soft light. Whispers of heat. Their shadows barely move. And still, they sit. Because something happens at the end of a day like this. When all the training is done. When the gods are quiet. When there's no prophecy waiting. Something beautiful. Friendship becomes a feeling. Not a word. Not a promise. Just a warmth. A trust. A quiet that holds you. Percy yawns. Grover curls up like a cat. Annabeth stretches her arms over her head and stares at the stars again. Then, Percy speaks. His voice is almost a whisper. Let's not forget this, okay? Annabeth doesn't answer. Grover doesn't either. But they don't need to. Because this campfire, this night, is carved in their hearts. Forever. And now, you're here too. You've walked the campgrounds. Heard the gods' softer stories. Met the creatures. Swum in the deep. Sat with the dreamers. And now, you sit at this fire. Warm. Safe. Still. You are not alone. Not in this dream. Not in this world. Not under these stars. The embers fade. The wind grows softer. The night deepens. Sleep is near. Let the campfire glow inside you. Let it flicker behind your eyelids. Let it guide your dreams gently into the next adventure. You've reached the end of the story, but not the end of the feeling. Because friendship, like fire, glows long after the flames go out. Good night, camper, Sleep well. Camp Half-Blood will be here when you wake. You've walked beside Percy. You've listened to Annabeth's quiet thoughts. You've floated in Poseidon's kingdom, wandered the cabins by starlight, and sat with friends beside a glowing fire. Now, the stories grow still. The torches have gone out. The cabins are dark. The forest is quiet. And the camp is sleeping. But something lingers. Not the battles. Not the fears. Not even the dreams. Just a warmth. A softness. A sense that you've been somewhere sacred. And that, somehow, it's still with you. Breathe in. Let the air fill your chest slowly. Breathe out. Let everything else go. You are safe. You are loved. You are not alone. And if your mind starts to drift again, toward cabins, or glowing seashells, or the sound of satyrs laughing near the strawberry fields, let it. Those memories belong to you now. You've earned them. They're part of your story. Sleep isn't the end of the journey. It's just the place where it begins again. Quieter, gentler, deeper. And when you wake, the campfire may be out, but its light will still be inside you. So rest now, hero. Let the waves carry you. Let the stars watch over you. Let the wind whisper lullabies through the trees. You've reached the end of the path and the beginning of peace. Good night from Camp Half-Blood, and may your dreams be filled with wonder.